Welcome back. Week 2 of season 2 of the 7th Rotation podcast. I'm so stoked to be here. We are at the foot of the mountain, pun intended, ready to summit the dang thing. So the conference play is here. We're starting the conference season tonight. So let's do it. We get to watch all of the games on the Summit League Network through Midco Sports Plus. Incredible opportunity. Please take advantage of it. Midco's top tier, and it's going to be pretty cool to be able to watch teams that you might not normally have been able to watch or might not in the past have been able to watch. So I'm excited to watch all of the games, as many games as I can. We're going to function like normal this week. We'll run through the end of the non-con from last weekend, have an interview, and then after that, run through what's coming up and what this weekend is going to look like and what we've got for you. So let's start with the end of the non-con. I'm going to do these in order of where the teams stand in the league right now. So obviously, conference play has not started yet, but there is still a pretty clear division between the top and the bottom of the conference right now. So starting with who is sitting at number 1, and that is Kansas City. Kansas City is 9-3. I raved about them last week. Very few rants, mostly raves. Notable losses, Chicago State, I think they lost that one 1-3. I don't know how to feel about that one. When I saw it, that game was not available for streaming, so unfortunately couldn't watch it. So I had to just go back and look through the box score. First set, not so great. After that, a lot better. I think one of those sets went into extra points. I thought Chicago State was beatable, but they do have some common opponents with some other Summit League programs. So just a notable loss, not a good loss or a bad loss. I'm not going to put a label on it, just a notable loss. Also, I'm doing something now, like, you know how you might say, like, oh, they had a big win. Here's a big almost. Southeast Missouri as well as St. Louis, both 5-set losses for Kansas City. We'll hopefully get to chat about those a little bit later when we have Coach Posey on the podcast. So yeah, notable losses, Chicago State, big almost, SEMO and St. Louis, and big win, Missouri State out of the Valley, 3-2 win for Kansas City there. And we talked about that last week. So in second place right now, heading into the conference part of the schedule is North Dakota State. North Dakota State is 8-3. Their notable losses, Ohio, that's debatable. Ohio did take Dayton to 5 sets. Dayton is now a ranked team. I don't think Dayton was ranked when Ohio took them to 5 sets. But there's that. Looking at the rest of Ohio's schedule, probably could have been a win for North Dakota State, but that's okay. They're still doing okay. Big wins, Butler and Toledo. Toledo's got a great volleyball team, so I'd consider that a big win. And third, South Dakota is 6-5. So already you're seeing the drop off. 9-3, 8-3, 6-5. Granted, before the Yote fans come screaming with pitchforks at me, tough schedule. I understand. And I have that noted here. So yes, 6-5, but all of your losses were either Power 5, losses to a Power 5 school, or you played a 5-set match. So back off. I am noting that. Big win, Green Bay and South Florida. Big almost was that 5-set loss to Drake. Absolute heartbreaker. Obviously wish it would have gone the other way, but just a great battle on both sides. In fourth, this might surprise you just a tad wee bit, is St. Thomas. St. Thomas is 4-7. Notable loss, Lindenwood. Lindenwood's played some common opponents with other Summit League schools. Lindenwood dropped the UIC match, Illinois Chicago, in 3 sets. I think one of those might have gone into extra points. But St. Thomas took Illinois Chicago to 5 sets, and Illinois Chicago is a very good team. So I just think that Lindenwood loss probably should have been a win for St. Thomas, but that's okay. Big wins that St. Thomas does have, Cal Baptist, and then their big almost Illinois Chicago, that 5-set loss. Who's in 5th? North Dakota. 3-9. Notable losses: Northern Illinois, should have been a win. Big win, 5 sets over Montana. Absolute big win for North Dakota there. Who is in 6th? Oral Roberts is in 6th. And actually, I guess technically a tie for 6th because ORU and South Dakota State are both 2-10. ORU's big win came over UC Riverside. That's another common opponent with the Summit League. Some other schools in the league have played at UC Riverside. South Dakota State, 2-10, big win. Alcorn State, out of the 2 wins that they have, the other being over Winthrop, Alcorn State was their most commanding win. So that's why I'm just noting it as a big win. And then in 8th, DU is 1-7. Denver's big win, Idaho State, is their only win. Their big almost, they had a great battle at Colorado last weekend. They won the first set. It was looking really good. Kind of fell apart a little bit, but they certainly put up a fight. So I don't know if you heard that. That was my dog. Normally I'm recording like after I get home from class, and my husband's home because he gets off work at like 2:30. But today I'm recording at like 9 a.m. And so I'm home and he's not, and the dog is in my office. So she's just chilling on the futon with her little lamb toy and my blanket, and she's all cozy. So if you hear any random like whines or squeals or ear flaps, that is Miss Sadie K, Queen of the Castle. All right, let's move on. Omaha is in last right now. They're 1-9. Their only win over Bradley. Their big almost, Wichita State and Northern Colorado. Would have been really nice for them to grab that win over Northern Colorado. As I mentioned last week, Northern Colorado's in the Big Sky. They won the Big Sky last year, so that would have been just kind of a little record booster for Omaha had they been able to grab that. But that's okay. So if we look at the preseason poll for the Summit, USD was picked to finish first. And granted, we've talked about the tough schedule, some of the kind of roster changes and rotation changes that they have going on. I'm not necessarily concerned. But they did not finish atop the non-con. Kansas City did. Kansas City was picked, I don't know, 7th. I'm not sure. Let me find the preseason poll. It's early. I am tired. I apologize. I've been up doing homework since 6 a.m., so you should be super duper proud of me. Okay, yeah, Kansas City was picked to finish 7th, and they are currently atop the league. USD was picked to finish first. They're currently in 3rd. The Bison picked to finish 2nd. They're in 2nd. Omaha picked to finish 3rd. They're currently in last. Jax picked to finish 4th. Non-con didn't go so well. They're currently in 7th. UND picked to finish 5th. They are currently in 5th. Pios picked to finish 6th. They're currently in 8th. Tommy's picked to finish 8th. They're currently in 4th. So along with Kansas City, they definitely made the highest jump thus far in proving the preseason poll wrong. And then lastly, ORU was picked to finish 9th, and they are currently tied for 6th. I guess I should know SDSU is tied for 6th too. I keep saying 7th. That's my bad. Please don't come for me with your pitchforks. So basically, it already looks a lot different than we thought it was going to, just based on the preseason poll. That doesn't necessarily surprise me. St. Thomas in 4th surprises me. I hope that they can continue to kind of hold their own this season. This will be, I think, the 3rd year in the league for them. So they've kind of had some time to adjust. Western Illinois obviously left the conference, so they're not on the schedule anymore. But other than that, there haven't really been a lot of changes in the past couple of years since St. Thomas has joined the league and moved up. So I would like to see them kind of continue to toe the line a little and be a bit more successful than they have been in the past. When we talk about like what's going to happen when we get into league play, I don't really know. I mean, nobody knows, and we said that last year too. Last year before the tournament, Joel and I were sitting here like, "Oh, yeah, we think that, like, all these matches are gonna go to 5 sets in the conference tournament," and it was like sweep, 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 like, we have no idea. I have no idea what's gonna happen. Um, what I would expect, or I guess what I would like to see happen, I would like to see Kansas City wreak some havoc. Kansas City was good in the WAC, and they came over and they had a good season here, a good season or 2, I can't remember. Got some big wins, beat Mizzou, and then kind of were not able to keep that going. We saw South Dakota get really good. I mean, they've been good, but better than they have been. We saw Denver get better than they have been, kind of fall off a little bit. There's been a lot of like movement. We saw SDSU start to get really good. I think it was Troy in my DMs, our favorite listener, trusty Troy G, um, mentioned that a lot of teams had a lot of roster turnover. Um, I think Kansas City had like I should be more prepared than this. It's fine. It's my podcast. I can do whatever I dang well please, even if it's checking my DMs. What did Troy say to me? Okay. 5 Summit teams had significant roster losses due to graduations and transfers. Denver, 10 players. Kansas City, 8 players. North Dakota and Oral Roberts, 7 players. And South Dakota State, 6. So, where you're seeing that, keep in mind Denver and Oral Roberts also had coaching changes. Where you're seeing that impact, I think UND is doing okay. I think they're doing okay with what they got right now. Could be better, could be worse. I think you're really seeing that impact in Oral Roberts, and you're really seeing that impact in SDSU. You're seeing it a little bit with Denver too. Kansas City is kind of the only school out of those 5 that doesn't really seem to be showing any signs of turnover. A lot of girls that were maybe number 2 or number 3 have now stepped up and are number 1, and they're killing it. No pun intended that time, actually. I have to be careful with my volleyball puns. But yeah, I don't know. I think things that I would like to see. I would like to see Kansas City finish in the top 3. I would like to see St. Thomas finish in the top half. And I would like to see SDSU make the Summit League tournament again. Those are my three things that I would like to see this season. As mentioned, not really worried about USD, not really worried about NDSU. Oral Roberts and DU will just have to see too many changes, including coaching changes, to really be able to predict or put expectations on anything. I also would like to see Omaha turn it around a little bit, but I also am not too concerned about them. I think 1-9 when you played 5 or 6 Power 5 opponents, I think that's very acceptable. Sure, there are a couple matches in there that they probably could have won, should have won. Even K-State, like I'm not saying they should have won, but they lost a couple of big leads. When they were really dominating, they kind of it's kind of that battle between, did we let K-State back into the match or did K-State fight their way back in? I think it was more of Omaha letting them back into the match a little bit. So just some things like that, but I still think that 1-9 is fair when you play the schedule that Omaha has played this season. Just like 6-5 is fair for USD when you've played the schedule that they've played this season. Playing Mizzou and Louisville and who else did they play? Northern Kentucky. I don't think it was Western. I think it was Northern. Iowa State. So, but I also think that's important. Now I'm just kind of ranting and babbling, but like I think that it is important to play those big schools if we want to get to a 2-bid league eventually, or even if we just want some respect on our name, which I know that anyone listening to this podcast wants respect on the Summit League's name. Otherwise, you literally would not be listening to this podcast because it's just me in my home office with my dog and my iPad, like spitting opinions about a mid-major league in the middle of the Midwest. But that league deserves respect, and that's why I'm here. So I don't really have a whole lot to say today. What am I at? Up 16 minutes. That's way better than like the 40 that it took me last week, but there was so much to get through last week. So we are going to bring Coach Christy Posey in here in a minute, and we're going to chat with her about Kansas City's non-conference and how everything's going down there. And then after that, I'll be back to preview the upcoming games for this weekend. And then I will send ye on your merry way to go watch some Summit League volleyball tonight. So stick around and we will be right back with Coach Christy Posey. All right, listeners, we are back with our second coach interview of the season. It is our fan favorite, Kansas City's Christy Posey. Coach, you still have the record for our most downloaded episode ever, as well as the most downloads on the first day. So congratulations for that.
Well, thank you. That's probably more about you guys than it was about me, but I appreciate the thought.
Well, we appreciate it as well. People love the Roos, and we're glad you're back. So let's just dive right in. First and foremost, I know that league play hasn't started yet, but your team is sitting atop the league standings, and that's a place that we have not seen the Roos in some time. So can you just talk to me about your non-con and how you got here?
Sure. I think we've taken advantage of some opportunities in our schedule and played hard, played well, and just really worked hard to be connected and be in a different space than we were last year, probably headspace, and some new blood has gotten into our system via new players. And then probably just the fact that we're hungry. We didn't like how we finished last season. It had been a while since we hadn't made the conference tournament. So we just recommitted to doing it differently this year. And so that was really kind of the impetus about just being better and in all ways, and having a bit of a championship mentality versus just kind of see how it's going to go. So I really do think our players have grown and learned and continued to do so, and just taken advantage of the opportunities to compete hard and put ourselves out there every single point. And we've been fortunate to be on the right side of a lot of matches due to their hard work and their commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of the hard work and the commitment and the talent, Carly Gillen, Odyssey Warren, Blair Taylor, Sydney Henry, and Leah Green are all players that are either in the top three, if not leading, at least one category on the Summit League, stat sheet. So talk a little bit about just the talent and the balance that you have throughout your roster and your rotation that's allowed you to be so successful thus far.
Well, I think we've been able to handle the ball pretty well so far, and so that allows our offense to work, be more high functioning than maybe in other years. And so Leah has really evolved, I think, as a high level defender. Blair's really come through from a service, just serving tougher and being locked in defensively. Carly has had a good preseason and continues to want to be really, really good and help us get to where we want to go. And then Odyssey was just lights out last weekend. She was unbelievable. It was disappointing we couldn't get, to win our own home tournament, but nothing short of her efforts offensively and really from a six rotation standpoint, she was really, really terrific. So we've had those kinds of performances throughout the preseason from a variety of players. Those kiddos that you just mentioned have probably been the most consistent. Sydney has really really embraced the opportunity to be a leader, trying to find her way as a young setter, both with her skill set, but then also growing, evolving, learning how to lead with different types of personalities. And I've been pleased with her progress. We all have a long way to go, Madison. There's a lot of season left, and every time we compete, I just want our players to continue to learn and grow and put ourselves in a position to win the match. Obviously, that's the ultimate goal. But if we can continue to get better and better and better throughout the season and stay healthy, as we all want, right, then we can put ourselves in that conversation of getting to the conference tournament, being in the final of the conference tournament and winning the damn thing. Sorry.
Absolutely. No, that's okay. I make the rules here and you can do whatever you want because you're Christy Posey. So I do want to, you mentioned, not quite being able to win your home tournament and putting yourself in a position to win matches. You know that I like to stay pretty positive, but I do want to bring up a topic that maybe stings a little and talk about Southeast Missouri and St. Louis. In both of those matches, you had pretty let me get my right question up here. In both those matches, you had a pretty dominant set. I think you were 25-16 in set 1 against SEMO and 25-11 in set 4 against St. Louis. Do you think that those were winnable matches? Were there missed opportunities there? And what would you kind of like to see out of your team in those situations?
Do I think they were winnable? Yes. Ultimately, in every set or for the majority of the match, or even at the end, statistically, we out-hit both teams, we out-blocked both teams, we out-dug both teams. We just weren't as good in Game 5. And so, being consistent all the way through and being tough at end game has continued to be a theme, and it will need to be because there's so much parity in the league. Everybody's really good, and so you just have to be clean and error-free, or create pressure that's going to put other teams in difficult situations at the end of the games. So that to me was, yes, we were disappointed that we didn't finish those two matches. In the SEMO match, we, I think, won the first, and then it was kind of back and forth. But the SLU match, we were down 0-2 and really weren't in great position in Game 3, but just busted our tails to be in the match and extend it to then see what could happen. And then Game 4, the wheels came off on their side a little bit, and we were really, really good in that set, but knew that they were going to come back in Game 5, and it was going to be like it was in the earlier 3 sets. And we just didn't do a couple of things at the very end of the game.
I was certainly flying off the couch during that one, or the bed, wherever I was. I think we were watching football, and I literally made my husband mute the TV so that I could turn my iPad up because I was just, and that was after you guys won set 3. I was like, all right, we're going reverse sweep. Let's do it. So yeah, definitely entertaining matches to watch. We're going back to our trusty listener, Troy G, who always has questions for us.
Good.
So he wants to know, how in the heck does Kimora Whetstone have success as a middle blocker at her height, and how has she overcome any adversity she might face?
Because she's a tough kiddo, and she's always been in that position of kind of being the smallest blocker in the match. Sometimes in the conference. And so she has just compensated with other skills. I think she's really quick laterally. She's disciplined from a blocking standpoint. Offensively, I think she still has she would be the first person to say she has some room to grow in terms of being just more versatile, what different shots she can hit. And so we continue to work on that, but she's obviously quick, and everybody knows that in our league now since they played her a year. But she just has a way of finding openings and being kind kind of sneaky good around some blockers. It's not easy. We're going to see a giant team this tomorrow night against Omaha, who's obviously going to scout us really, really well and watched a lot of matches and seen Kimura have success, and teams that have been able to manage her watch those things. But Kimura is just an energizer bunny that just keeps coming at you. And if you don't pay attention, she's going to find ways to score. And she's done that all preseason and last year. So we applaud her just fight and spirit, and just try to find new ways that will allow her to continue to be successful in different ways than she has been so far.
Absolutely. I was going to ask, you kind of answered, but last year, you had said that you didn't think people were scouting her, but they probably would. So I was going to ask, do you think people are paying attention now to Kimura Whetstone?
Yes, absolutely. She's a unique talent in that the ability off the ground and her quick arm gives her a bit of an edge over some, it looks different. And
yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. That is all of the serious questions I have for you. So we're going to move into the fun stuff.
Okay.
So my first one is, in your tenure at Kansas City, what is the toughest volleyball environment that you think the Roos have played in, whether that be due to, fans or whatever, both in the conference and out of the conference?
The toughest volleyball environment. Oh, I think anytime we go, we've played at KU a number of times, and that's such a great fan base. And I was fortunate to be there for 10 years and experience that. And, my favorite time, Madison, at KU was when the band came, because the band was awesome. And we used to have the decals at the end line at KU. This was they reshifted Horish where they play now. But when I was there, the Jayhawk was in the end line where people served, right? And so one of my favorite sayings that the band used to scream at opposing players was, "Get off the bird, get off the bird." But so KU, just because of their crowd and fans, and they're really on top of you, that's a tough place to play. I feel more at home there just because I spent time there, and I have a great appreciation for the fan base at KU. But I do think it's tough for players who have never been in that environment. So that's probably one out of conference. And then, I look at our league, and I think there's a lot of places. I mean, Baxter is difficult just because it's different. There's not a lot of arenas like Baxter. And it always feels like it's Arctic in there,
That's what I was going to ask.
It's about sub-zero. So there's a little bit of a tough deal to kind of get yourself warm. Obviously at South Dakota, those fans are rabid, and they love their Coyotes, and they do a good job of filling that place. So that's a tough place to play. I think all league schools are, just because they're fans. I think we have great fans in the Summit League, and I appreciate them coming out and supporting their teams, even though it's against us. And, sometimes it's fun, some of the things that they say. The only issue I have is when it gets nasty or gets personal to players. That's the problem that I have. But most of the time it's just rooting for their team, or them saying something silly, about us. But if it as long as it doesn't get personal, then I'm okay. But I think, that's one of the great things about the sport, that young players sometimes don't transition quite as quickly as they haven't played in those kinds of environments. And then how do you manage that as you go into those, especially if it's a tight game and there's a lot on the line?
Absolutely. All right. Outside of your own roster, who is a Summit League volleyball player that you admire for their tenacity?
Well, I just haven't watched a lot of Summit League volleyball yet this year. So, I mean, Elizabeth Junkie was a player that I have great respect for, and I'm saddened that things worked out the way they did. She will have still great influence on that team as she moves through her next phase. And but that's a kid who just brought it, and you never knew what she was going to do in terms of. You knew she was going to hit the ball hard 98% of the time, but then 2% she was going to move it around and just put it exactly where you weren't. So I have great respect for that kiddo, and would like to see her finish her career in a positive way, whatever that is now. So that's probably the kid, just without seeing all of the rosters so far this season. I'm sure there'll be players that I'll look at and go, wow, that's a kid that I respect simply for their work ethic and what they bring to their team, and not just from a skill set, but I have a great appreciation for kiddos that really lift their teammates and help create even more, I guess, just elevate their play just simply because of their presence on the court. And that's where my admiration goes for kiddos across the net.
Absolutely. I just like to ask that question because I think it's exciting to see from a non-scouting perspective, just like, who do you like to watch? For me, it's Marissa Stockman. I just think I'm obsessed with her. She's so dope. But yeah. All right. Last question. So last year we asked you how you've changed as a coach over the years. And this year we want to know who has inspired those changes. Who is your coaching mentor or your inspiration?
Oh, Madison, there's a lot of people that have contributed to lots of different areas of my coaching style and philosophy, and have influenced me. I take a lot of inspiration from people in different ways, in different genres. There are times where it's another coach, not even necessarily a volleyball coach. People from my past. I've had coaches in my past that have been that I can still hear in my ear. So I think there've just been so many different. There's a lot of people that I talk to when we're struggling or I just need a little bit of advice. One of those guys is Trent Jones, my former assistant coach, who's now the head coach at Rockhurst University. We have a great relationship, and we can vent about different things, and he's been here, so he understands. He knows the league. I have another guy that I worked with at Kansas by the name of Ken Merzek. He's now the head coach at Emporia State. He and I have a similar philosophy in a lot of different ways, and we bounce things off of each other. I have a former mentor in the high school ranks was Joni Wells, who was a unbelievable high school coach at Lawrence High, where I did my student teaching. I know that's 70 years ago, but she still has, there are certain things that I remember and try to put into place. And then just, I try to read a lot. Hugh McCutcheon's book, Championship Behaviors, is something that I've really done a deep dive into and had a lot of just good principles that have either reinforced some of the things that I've been doing or give me a little bit of a nuanced view that I can then bring to my team. So I just think there's a lot of different people who I listen to and see and watch, and I try to look at some of the things that I can do a little bit better.
Absolutely. It certainly comes out in the way that you articulate and just the way you talk about your team. And that's why I love having you on the show, because I feel like, coaches come here and they have a good time and that's great. But you seem to always leave me with a life lesson. You and St. Thomas's Ruth Sin on the basketball side, you guys always leave me with life lessons. So I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for that, Madison.
Absolutely. All right. So that is all we have for today. So thank you for being here, and I'll give you a little outro here. You guys are headed up I-90 to play Omaha tonight. I guess this will come out on Thursday. Tonight,
Okay.
tomorrow, however you
Yeah.
want to put it, at 7 p.m. local time, and then back at the Sweeney Center to host SDSU on Saturday at 1. You can catch both of those on the Summit League Network through Midco Sports Plus. Give us your best Rue Up, Coach. I know that's how you like to leave the show.
Rue up! Rue up! Woo!